Hi everyone, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us today. I will quickly start this session and thank you all for your presence today during your heavy work days. I'll start with a small introduction for the entire topic that we have. The settling down effect post the pandemic has made the picture clearer for us, right? While the pandemic worked as a trigger in pushing the internet usage to new heights in the metros, it did pull the attention of the small town consumer to an enormous level. According to the India Retail and E-commerce Trends report by Unicommerce and Wizir Advisors, which was published in August, it highlights that shoppers from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities are set to change the entire e-commerce's landscape. Now, these online savvy buyers account for over 61% of the overall market share in FY20. Hello? Yeah, sorry. In FY22. Now, this is up from 54% in FY21. Now, Indian Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities reported a growth of 92% and 85% respectively, while Tier 1 indicated a slower e-commerce growth of 47%. Now, these numbers are massive, right? First of all, Tier First of all, the fact comes is that Tier 2 and Tier 3 are accounting for 92% growth, 85% growth, while Tier 1 is slowing down. So overall, the landscape itself is changing for us. Now, as entrepreneurs have been leading the way for offering a host of products and services, use of tech-based solutions, all of those have cemented the promises that they made to the consumers across the country. Bharat itself, which has been or which has taken a road less taken, holds enormous potential, and the same is evident in the experience gained by some of the leading brands in the country who we have with us today itself. Now, while we indulge in the interesting discussion on how retailers are enhancing their business to meet the rising order volumes from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, I would like to introduce my fellow experts who are going to share the best of industry knowledge with us. I am Prateek Mahajan, Director Operations, Unicommerce, and we have with us here Nishant Poddar, the CMO, Head Retail Experience for WROGN.
Hi, Prateek. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. I'm looking forward to this session for a wonderful conversation with the rest of the panelists as well. I have been, having a total, I've been in retail with over 18 years of experience. I have been pretty much a founding member at Universal Sports Space, which is a house of fashion brand. Started this business at ground zero, and we have a retail presence at over 550 retail point of sale as we speak today, and we are catering, to all sections of the youth in the country today. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Next, we have Lalit Chandnani, CTO Urban Ladder. Hi, Lalit.
Hi, everyone. So I right now lead the entire technology team for Urban Ladder, and I have around 12 years of experience overall building the web product, web systems, and a large part of it basically into e-commerce, starting from looking at the customer journey when customer is interacting with you, discovering the products and discovering the services one has to offer till the delivery and the after sales part of it. And really excited to be part of the discussion today. Really looking forward to learn from all my fellow panelists to see what is their point of view on looking at the growth in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities.
Thanks, Lalit. Next, we have Vinay Chatlani, who is the Executive Director and CEO of SOCH.
Hey everyone, so I am the co-founder and CEO of SOCH. We are a women's ethnic wear brand, started 2007. Fairly saturated in the south, and have been moving outside of the region for the last 5 to 6 years. Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities play a very large part of our expansion plans right now, and I'm happy to be on the panel with everyone here.
Thank you, Vinay. Next, we have Abhay Batra, who is the co-founder and CFO for Clovia Lingerie.
Hi, Abhay this side. I am part of Clovia, and we are a lingerie brand, and lingerie, nightwear, sleepwear, and now personal care brand. And essentially moving towards a House of Clovia platform kind of play. I've been with the brand since the beginning and very recently taken over by Reliance. And yeah, I mean, tier 2, tier 3 for us is about 70% of our revenue. So we are exactly what this show is about today. Glad to be part of the panel and glad to see your lovely faces and look forward to interacting and learning.
Thank you so much, Abhay. A warm welcome to each and every one of you. And thank you so much for taking out time. So I will quickly go on with the format that we'll go on today. Now we have allocated 2 questions for each speaker and I've assigned a few minutes for each response. Now, since we have limited time, it would be great if we can just try to get it done in the time frame. And as the last few minutes have been assigned for some questions that we're going to take from the audience. I would request the audience to post their questions in the chat column in the Q&A specifically so that we can take all of them. Great. Thank you. So let's start. So we'll start with our first question, and that is for Nishant. Now, Nishant, now looking at the retail sector, which is largely unorganized in India, do you think e-commerce itself is changing and even sellers and buyers from small towns are coming online? If yes, what's the role of technology in bringing all of this change?
Thanks, Prateek, for the question. So before we jump into understanding the nuances of what technology has done, let me just read out some facts for you so that we have a clearer understanding. As we speak today, average internet penetration is about 61% of total Indian population. We're talking about estimated rural internet users of about 375 million, and estimated users doing online transaction is about 300 million. On an average, on a daily basis, an average mobile user spends about 4.5 hours a day on his mobile. That's some staggering data. This clearly, these data points clearly showcases how the world has evolved or the country has evolved, and we have, the technology has, taken over everything. I would largely pull out 4 basic pillars, which would where the technological impacts have, hampered or impacted each one of us. Starting with the digital consumption, right from the time we think, the way we consume data, to think, to perceive, or how we react. It has been completely transformed with the usage of internet and this mobile phone. It has completely. So digital transformation is one very, very important aspect of the entire transformation, which is right from the time how are we aspiring and how are we consuming the data. The second one would be applied analytics. Back in the days where all of us had access to data, we were using that data to translate into information. But largely what has happened is now with this analytics and technological changes, what we've seen is this data and information is now converted or transformed into analytics. Analytics like what to produce, when to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what is the consumer doing right now. So, that has impacted us. So that is pillar number 2. Pillar number 3 would be in infrastructural development, which is, which would largely lead to, the hub and spoke model, where, how quickly can we deliver the modules, the entire, infrastructure system, how technology has impacted that, quicker delivery, and we ensure that, there is quicker delivery would mean obviously reduced time and obviously earn working capital. So that's another pillar. So this is pillar number 3, and pillar number 4 would be the financial modules. Giving you some reference point, with the advent of UPI, I mean, quoting some facts again, about 30% of our transaction of the Indian GDP happens on UPI, and the UPI system, which was created by the government of India, is world's largest real-time money transfer network that we have. So this financial modules have actually, made and impacted the ease of doing business, right from different payment options available, or, if the consumers at the rural, India doesn't have, availability of cash for that matter, now BNPLs are available which is facilitating all of it. So largely the technology has impacted the 4 pillars: digital, applied analytics, infrastructure, and finance. That's how I see it.
Perfect. That's a very strong insight and very clearly put 4 points. Thank you so much, Nishant. Definitely over the last 10 years, all of us have seen how each of them have developed. I think Data is something that has started coming in D2C brands over the last few years. UPI has been a revolution itself, and infra has been something that has been developing over the last 10 years, and the way that it has come across is phenomenal. I mean, remember 2010, 11 when the deliveries of the world were starting and or the e-carts of the world were starting. So it was very rare to see that how all these segments and infras would actually go across over the next 10 years. So amazing insight into that. Thank you so much. Next question I'll have for Lalit. So Lalit, so what are the expectations of the established brand from Bharat? So basically tier 2 and tier 3 audience. What do you think is Bharat's response to the initiatives taken by retail brands? How are D2C brands competing against local retailers or suppliers?
Right. So yeah, thanks, Prateek. I think definitely for the brands like us would definitely expect that our consumer kind of love us, and then for the category where we operate, definitely I think that's the most expectation from every brand, and that's how they are kind of want to achieve it. I think Nishant brought a couple of really good points around how the internet revolution has kind of changed the overall market, right? So probably around a couple of years back, there were users who were primarily looking for browsing offline and buying offline, probably have moved to now browsing online and buying offline. The people who are browsing online and buying offline are moved to browsing online and browsing buying online also. And probably the segment which was already buying online and browsing online has anyways increased, right? So what it means for brand like us is basically the overall presence has a larger chance to kind of penetrate deeper into not only into metros but also into deeper into tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And that's where you can see the largest chunk of sort of opportunities there. Now the different brand can be a different part of the spectrum. When we look at something like apparel category, probably it's more towards an organized size, and the category like ours, which is into sort of furniture, is probably slightly toward unorganized. And there could be categories like let's say jewelry, which could be somewhere in the middle of the overall spectrum. So all sort of the brands will have different sort of challenges depending on they are into this overall journey. But as any of this brand kind of moves deeper into tier 2, tier 3 cities, they definitely have a kind of share to kind of take up from the market, which is slightly sort of unorganized. So that's I think a good opportunity for us. And at the same time, what I also do feel there's a good opportunity for also the other market, which is probably a little unorganized. So for brand like us, we've been working with the local vendors and local sellers to not only provide them an additional channel through which they can kind of increase sort of their revenue by working with us, but at the same time we have been also working with them in a shop in shop model, right? So kind of it helps us kind of bringing the visibility in the market probably where we are new, and for them also it helps them to kind of organize their business and really contribute to growth in the segment. So I think that way I really see that there's a good room for all of us to kind of play and kind of organize those segment and kind of also help the local market and kind of vendors there in that segment to grow.
And that's a very interesting and an important thought that when you're expanding to tier 2 and tier 3, so sometimes it turns out what is the strategy? Do you want to penetrate or do you want to coexist? But the way that you've actually mentioned it is that you go there and you work with them to enable them as well and yourselves as well. That
Correct.
is a fantastic and a beautiful way to work around it. And that's how the organic way will actually also end up being. Thank you so much, Lalit, for that insight. So now I'll come to Vinay. So Vinay, what are the steps that the retailers have taken to strengthen their supply chain across the smaller towns in India? So since a major bunch of the population resides in tier 2 and tier 3, how do brands see the future of retail in these areas?
Right. So just touching upon the supply chain aspect of it, there are a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities that are, have their distances and last mile logistics challenges. So in general, because of a few factors, we do tend to keep slightly higher months cover of stocks in these stores. Sometimes the last mile challenges Also, you have in some small towns, you tend to have smaller revenue numbers per square foot as compared to larger cities. Not always the case, surprisingly so in some places. But I still have 9 categories that we put in the store. We're majorly perceived as an evening occasion brand, but we do have casual wear, we have workwear, we have fusion, and for me to have a credible offering across all categories, and obviously tailored to the tastes and the price sensitivities of the particular city. There are times when we do end up keeping slightly larger amounts of stock. And at the same time, smaller cities tend to have smaller floating populations, and therefore you have much higher repeat usage or consumers coming back, and that calls for higher freshness. So they kind of go against each other. And historically, what we've done to kind of combat that is to have more frequent consolidations and shuffles between warehouses and stores as well. Obviously now, since we have grown a considerable amount over the last 3-4 years, we do have 5 regional warehouses. One has to be a little careful because apart from the obvious costs, there are hidden costs in terms of, obviously sectioning off certain merchandise and keeping it in a regional warehouse. And, you ideally want to be as nimble with that stock as possible. So we tend to keep merchandise that is selling fairly commonly across. That's the kind of stuff we keep in the regional warehouses. And then things that are of higher price points and things like that, we tend to keep at our main distribution center. And, depending on performance and certain thresholds that we measure, like rate of sale and things like that, we take a call between ground and train and sometimes air, especially with higher price points, where it completely justifies, holding all my very high price points in my main distribution center. The emergence of Omni, and we've had a store-to-store Omni platform for about 7 years now. So our system is pretty geared up to using Omni, and now that we have tabs and endless aisle opportunities for discovery in stores, there's a lot of Omni orders that happen between stores, and most of our tier 2 and tier 3 stores tend to be franchisee stores, just due to ability to operate the stores. We have our regional managers and things like that, and but the ability for them to kind of cross order with omnichannel is something that's we've seen a high uptake. There's also this higher willingness to look at a product visually and say, I would like to order it. And the pandemic has obviously kind of accelerated that. We've seen price points on our online sales go up, so there's obviously a greater comfort that people have shopping online right now, and that kind of helps with the tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. From a perspective of how do we tend to reach out there and how big it is, it's about 50% of our revenue right now. We expect it to grow incrementally faster than the bigger cities. They do tend to be lower rent, lower operational cost, and so unit economics are pretty lucrative in smaller towns. And now that media has gotten so fragmented, this whole idea of hub and spoke and, needing to have this awareness in the big city and then looking at the satellite cities and that rub off of the brand awareness, you don't need that anymore, because especially with digital marketing, you're able to, target, very, very micro locations, and that's the primary way that most people are exploring fashion in any case. So I think they all line up well together, and we're pretty excited to see what these areas will bring to us in the future.
Thank you, Vinay. So my takeaway would be that, first of all, agility in terms of planning of the supply chain is very, very important, like you had mentioned. So sometimes when the stocks are not moving, you have to be sure that you don't spend a lot of time sitting around there. And the agility to move from one place to another to ensure higher inventory turns is very important. The other thing that you mentioned, that digital marketing has really helped boost things out. It has helped increase the price points as well, and also the brand awareness in tier two and tier three. And like, you have already 50% of your growth, 50% of your sales coming from T2 and T3, and growing faster than T1. So definitely a new Bharat for everyone on how this has shaped up. So this is a really good insight. I think the inventory planning is the agility is the key, definitely, to the supply chain, rather than just expanding, but that is very, very important. Thank you. So now I'll come to Abhay. So Abhay, lingerie is a different market, right? We've talked about women apparel, we've talked about furniture or home decor, we've talked about apparel, normal apparel. But lingerie is a different market. How big is the trend of lingerie shopping in tier two and tier three cities of India? Like, can you elaborate on how consumers are different in tier one and metros as compared to tier two and tier three cities?
Thanks. So frankly, the answer is quite simple. Who is a customer? For us, the question was extremely simple to answer, because assuming India is 130 or 140 crore, whatever number people, and you have a ratio of 50-50, for the lack of the correct number, you have at least 65-70 crore people, and just remove the number that lives in the tier 4 and downward, you have about 30 to 40 crore people who are ready to be served. And with us selling a bra at 225 to 30 rupees a pop, I don't think anybody outside of outside of the tier 3 cities, which I will come back to why I say so. I think tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 all have been supermarkets for us. And so today we sell. So what is Clovia? Clovia is a online first, omni-channel, but online first brand. Like, the preference is always to sell online, and 70% of my sales from my online store, which is about 60% of my total revenue, goes to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? And why this brand came up was, when you go to a lingerie shop earlier, there was no online lingerie shopping. A lot of, I don't know about you all, but we've said this out a lot of times. Entrepreneur को चलाने का मौका मिले तो we never let it go. But earlier you wanted to shop lingerie, you would go to a shop. There would be an uncle. You will say, "I need." You won't even say a bra. You will say, "I need this," and he will say, "No, better, this is not your size. You take this size." So typical way lingerie used to be shopped, or your mother would be shopping for it, or your husband would get it for you in a black envelope, like it's a taboo. Today we give the option of buying from a full-fledged, affordable fashion premium solution store, which is online and now going offline also. We have about 35 on stores and plan to open about 500 odd in the next 3 to 4 years. And today the woman has the option to buy online, decide, return, and all of that is done discreetly, right? So, mind you, and I will share a very interesting and very funny example with you. We always saw that 15% of our customers were men, and we thought it's great, and we created a gentleman's guide and all and all. But when we got to speaking to those people, we figured that the women were ordering from their husband's email ID or their husband's credit card because they wanted it to be super discreet. Or in tier 2, tier 3, the woman does not have her own income, so she needs money from the husband. So that's the kind of market that you're catering, and so intimacy is something that is super critical for us. And yeah, and uh, I mean, from a brand perspective, how many national brands other than Jockey do you know of lingerie? How many national brands do you know of nightwear? I mean, today, yes. In the past 2 years, post-COVID, we see a lot of them coming up. But how many national brands? I mean, you will see a couple on, actually not a couple, you will see 20 on Myntra, you will see most of them on Amazon, etc. But there used to be one brand, Valentine's, which is now not there. There used to be one Style. I'm sharing examples saying that how real is this market, how real is this opportunity, and how it has not been catered. And there is also a reason to it, because India is not one country. There's 35 countries. Every state has different size sets. Every state wants different colors in different seasons. Every state uh, has different sensibilities. So it's an ocean out there of what you want to address and what you can address. Rather, I would say. So, yeah, I mean, did I answer the question?
Yes, I think I remember when you were starting the question, you wanted to tell something, and I think that's the point where it's actually an ocean of opportunities. Different customer sets are coming across, and how catering to different customer sets is itself expanding the entire brand itself. A few
And a
very
tier 2, tier 3 customer will not be shy of trying out new things. You know, they want to. There is an aspirational aspect attached to them, which is super cool. Like when I mentioned, and they're so open about what they want. They just don't need that uncle to be listening to them. They want a brand to be listening to them, so that the brand can address what they want. Unlike a tier 1 customer, typical South Delhi customer who will say, no, I'll only go to a Marks and Spencer's and not try. Like it was the hardest thing. It took me 4 years to change my wife to Clovia from Marks and Spencer's or La Senza. So you can imagine how tough. And I am the Brahman, so uh, imagine the plight of a man who wants to buy uh, lingerie for a woman and does not to crack open 2,000 rupees for a bra. So that's the simple problem that we are trying to solve.
I think the way that you also described is figuring out what the problems have been, and going out right down to the consumers, trying to put yourself in their shoes and solving those problems. I think that's how every great company has itself become, solving a problem that exists in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, where you said that it gives option of choice, it gives a freedom of choice to buy something, and that discreetness. I think that's something that has been a very big point. When you say 70% of your online sales are tier 2 and tier 3, itself says volumes of the kind of brand that you have uh, made popular. So thank you so much, Abhay, on that. So the next question that I will have is back to Vinay. Now, Vinay, very interestingly that you mentioned about the way tier 2 and tier 3 cities are going and how agile the supply chain has been. Now, my question would be that while you mentioned the kind of demand that you witness in these cities, what has the market mix changed post-pandemic for you? What key areas must a brand actually focus on to ensure that they're catering to an Indian audience, right? If you can elaborate on the role of technology, considering you process such high order volumes, I think this will be a very, very interesting part to see how that shift has happened post-pandemic period, and how have you taken other parts to ensure that you are ahead of the curve.
Right. So, I'll pick off Abhay's statement and stress upon the fact that India does not work as one country at all. And you take that into the space of ethnic wear, and it gets even more complicated. Tastes differ widely, and I'm not even talking region to region or city to city. I have stores within the same city that have huge differences in contribution of categories, in the kind of fits and styles and colors. All you have to do is go to Delhi and go to the major high streets, and every high street has a very unique demographic, and therefore fashion is different for each demographic. I do think that media, specifically social media, designers, and Bollywood, things like that, have made fashion a lot more cosmopolitan in a sense. So we no longer see very, very strong needs for large changes in merchandise in the South versus the West. I think as a product strategy as well, we're trying to move towards products that are as inclusive as possible, to consumers all over the place. But we do have sometimes between 10 to 20% of merchandise in any store that might have been bought for that region specifically. But it also depends. If I'm in a tier 2, tier 3 city, which happens to have some very strong sari players, and I have to go head to head against them, my sari contribution may be a little lower. But that's where I think the way we operate as a brand, we don't look at ourselves as a lot of brands where they have a very unique design aesthetic. And while we try to have an overarching aesthetic in terms of how elevated and sophisticated the brand and the products are, we're not kind of confined. And therefore, if we're launching a new product category, or if we're going a little louder or a little more subtle, lighter colors, darker colors, it's kind of accepted by people that know our brand, because we kind of stand for being able to bring in what's doing well in the market at that time. So that way we've been fairly lucky. We're able to be fairly nimble. Trends in ethnic wear tend to change year on year as well. We've seen a surge in demand for salwar suits, for example, and that's come back much harder in tier 2, tier 3 cities. And as far as post-pandemic, we did see a small period where we saw ASPs drop and casual wear went up, but not significantly. And surprisingly enough, we already had a strategy that we wanted to move away from the lower ASPs and move more towards evening occasion, or even if it's a day occasion, have products that have a little more embellishment, and just kind of step away from the value space. We don't want to be battling with the value giants and things like that. So we actually haven't seen too much of a change. It took a little while. It settled, but it's similar patterns to before. Again, we are a brand that caters primarily to occasion wear and things like that. So I think that's the go-to for consumers, and nobody's going to stop celebrating occasion, especially now that everything's open. So I think that's how and as far as catering to an Indian audience, we're an ethnic brand. So I think that's inherent in everything that we do.
Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. So, what you mentioned was that while there has been a surge or a change in between the pandemic in pockets, but now that the pandemic is settling down, the demand changes are coming back to the same pattern as before, and that's really encouraging. So that everything that we have in the playbook doesn't need to get tossed out now. That's really helpful for a lot of brands out there.
Did you want me to touch upon the tech aspects as well?
Yeah, that will be really helpful.
Yeah, so just quickly on a couple of things that we're doing. We used to sell a lot of products through physical lookbooks or catalogs, and at one point they contributed to 40% of our sales, and these came from about 12 to 13% of our styles. And we saw the power of people being able to visualize a product on someone and have that much more confidence on buying it. And once we saw that, we said, well, we definitely want to do video, because if pictures can do this, imagine what a video can do. And with ethnic wear, it's about the fall and the way the product moves and things like that. So we actually started introducing digital signage in our stores. It's been about 7 years, and we have product content that is linked to our ERP, and therefore a video will only play if the product's available in the store. Now we're thinking of doing away with that, because you could still like the product and order it on Omni. And we put a break on the physical catalog. We're launching our digital catalogs this month, and what we've put into that is video content along with still, and the idea is to bring voiceovers in there as well. So for a lot of customers that just want to browse on their own, there'll come a time when you could just scan the piece and video will pop up. Someone's going to talk about the product, and if they need further assistance, they can ask for it. Of course, that applies everywhere, but those are a few things that we're rolling out.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Vinay. Now from Vinay, we'll go on to Nishant. So Nishant, now WROGN is a different brand, right? It has a strong appeal for the young, fashion-driven Indian consumer. How much of that is true for tier 2 and tier 3 towns in the country, since the brand has strengthened their online presence over the last few years, along with the establishment of offline sales? What is the marketing strategy that brands can adopt, and what are your key learnings specifically as well?
Yeah, thanks, Prateek. Just to get onto that question, Prateek, I would just want to classify two more classifications that we have done at our end whenever we try and talk about tier 2, tier 3 market. What we have done is we have identified two important markets which are further classification from tier 2, tier 3, which is a boom city and a niche city. Largely boom city and niche city have a very strong household income, but what we have done is a boom city is somewhere a city where you have younger audience where they have high disposable income. So we have identified that this becomes an important intrinsic part of our launch plan, or in terms of reach plan, how we are approaching that market and how we are evolving that. It is very, very important that we identify the city and map that city for how the demographics are, and communicate with the audience how we are looking at it. Similarly, for a niche city, example for boom city will be something like a Kota. It has a very high student population, high disposable income. Largely when it comes to XYZ things, or Mysore for that matter, high disposable income. It's a city which is a lot of techies are there, so a lot of opportunities in that format. Similarly, a niche city is again there. The household income is very, very similar to what will be there in a metro city. This would be examples would be Amritsar and Ludhiana. Again, we have a different kind of module for that. But largely how we see the marketing operations, or how do we look at connecting with the, with the customers at large in these markets, which is tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. We have a thumb rule policy that any communication that we are going to do will have these 4 cohorts again, and if it does not follow, if the communication language is not monitored or ticked by these check boxes, at least 2 of these check boxes, we will not do that kind of communication, which are namely, if the communication is not unexpected, communication is not quirky, communication is not cool, and the communication is not educative enough. If 2 boxes are not ticked, we will not do the kind of communication that we are looking to do. So that's how we go and initiate about it. Now the consumers, and like the panelists did mention, saying that the consumers of today are far more evolved. They know and understand what their preferences are and how they're looking to, have that preferences met. What we look at doing is ensuring that the consumer experience, and this is the most important aspect of our growing and marketing strategy, the consumer experience remains seamless, irrespective of market that we are, entering or talking to, whether it is a Bombay, Bangalore, or for that matter, Tirunelveli. We have ensured the way the store looks visually, the audio system, the kind of music which is played, the fragrances or the smell of the store, or how the consumers is made to feel inside the store. Similarly, how when there is a consumer, obviously online, there could be this experience could be seamless, but this is more so from a B2 brick and mortar format. So we have that is rule number 1 that we have ensured. The second one is communicating in the in a format or a form that the consumer would want to engage in. Whether it is going vernacular wrong, as a brand, we do not communicate in a vernacular language. But when it comes to connecting the dots with the audience and ensuring that we reach the last mile, we have ensured that we have toned that down, and we are reciprocating, we are communicating back to the consumer in the format that the consumers would want to have it. And that's something which is really ticked up well, and we have been able to entrench into these markets. Third, which, like Vinay mentioned, digital is a very, very important aspect. We are able to go down the funnel and target the consumer that who has been exposed to our brands, and offer them what they're looking to have, whether it is GMB, which is Google My Business Account, or geo targeting, ensuring that the consumers are offered plethora of options. Just giving you some reference, just last month, I mean, we had launched some boxy fit t-shirts, and in a city like Erode in Tamil Nadu, a consumer walks in and he wanted to buy, a boxy fit. Now, the store manager, probably if given an opportunity, would not want to, pick, because it is not a high selling item. What we have done is we have ensured that the communication that we are doing for any format, it remains standard, whether I'm doing it for Bombay or for a city like Erode for that matter. Not take consumers for granted, ensure that it is the same. And yes, the volumes can go up and down. We have to stay nimble in terms of the inventory management. But yes, we have ensured, we have to ensure that what we are communicating largely holds good for the nation across. So that's another important aspect. Last, but not the least, what we are looking at doing, Prateek, is ensuring that we give it back to the consumer. When I say giving back to the consumer, is largely ensuring that there is a relationship which is established with the customer. We need to ensure that the consumers of these tier 2, tier 3, or tier 4 markets are communicated well and made sure that they are educated enough in terms of the latest trends, developments which are happening. So we have our fashion consultants giving them tips, styling sessions, or the likes, to give them, okay, if your body type is a V shape, or you have a broad shoulder, this is what will fit in. If you have a lighter skin tone, this product would fit in. So we have, we have that program where we consciously ensure that we give it back to the consumer and educate them, so that that relationship is established. Last, just adding one more. This is local affiliation, strong, word of mouth, which goes long way. We firmly believe in this, saying that, identifying a brand ambassador in the respective city, so that, he could be the face and ensure. When I say face, I do not mean a celebrity, but I mean saying that, someone who can represent the brand, which is, he could be anyone, he or she could be anyone who imbibes the wrong motto. So connecting with that and ensuring that the local affiliation is passed on. So that's how we look at, connecting the marketing dots for the consumers. These are strong points. And of course, the channel, we are channel agnostic. We could ensure that, if a billboard is relevant, we will go, and use that. If there is a digital marketing requirement, we'll go ahead and address that. So, but these are the thumb rules that we use to operate it out.
Fantastic. I think the playbook that you have just mentioned is really, really helpful for any brand trying to even enter a market. The way that you actually summarized the boom city, the niche city, ensuring customer experience remains the same, marketing techniques, digitally going back down to each consumer, geotagging, going back and giving to the consumers, fashion stylists, basically, and local ambassadors. I think that's
just to add, Prateek, what we have done is, like I said, we have over 550 retail point of sale. We have strategies mapped to each single point of sale, which works out to the demographics of that location. Erode would work very different to a Guntur and a Ongal versus a Noida and a Ghaziabad for that matter. So we have mapped it granularly so that the consumers are seeing that connect, and there's a small special bonding which happens with the brands.
Fantastic. I think creating a brand identity like this is really going to help all the audience that have come across and how to actually expand. This is really turning out to be a gold mine, to be very honest. Thank you so much, Nishant, for your help. So I'll go to Abhay, and Abhay. So when we talk about the overall retail industry, and this is tier 2 and tier 3, like you're mentioning, is actually now bread and butter for you. Now, tell me one thing that if you can tell me on commenting on the economic support and growth that the retail brands will provide to the local markets over there, and what kind of opportunities should the local people expect to see over there in the coming years when you're expanding your footprint over there?
Okay, there are two aspects. So one is online. Online, of course, local logistic partners is something that's happening across the industry. So that's a, but I don't know what to take out of it, because a lot of small scale SME business operators which would open small shops, etc., are becoming delivery partners, which is a change that the country is seeing as such. So how good or bad that will turn out in the long run, we are the jury's out, but that's something that's happening. The second thing that's happening on the offline front, at least for us, will be considering 90% of my retail offline presence will be in tier 2 and tier 3, as against the 70% in online. I will say the store staff, and we are a women focused brand, so employment opportunities for store staff for the women is something that we are very proud of. We also, what we do is we take over small sectors of small villages where we train women on manufacturing, and currently we're doing about 15 to 20 lakh units a month, depending upon because hyper growth path currently, because the moment we joined Reliance, we have 10,000 stores where we have to stack our material. So but what we do is we train women. We currently work with 100 vendors across the country, and we are adding about 10 to 15 every month. So they will take 20 women and teach them how to manufacture lingerie, or the easier bits first, and then the bra is an engineered product, so it's a little bit tough to begin with, but the other products can be taught and can be learned. So that's something to do. That's from an economic perspective. But then again, money saved is money earned, and a status change helps you where a lot of other things will not change. So we will give a brand experience to a woman sitting in a small city like Moradabad. I don't know whether it's a small city anymore. So affordability of a brand which is a national brand, and we also get customers complaining sometimes, by the way, saying the quality of your product is so I don't know how to take it. The quality of product was bad, not what I expected. I don't expect this from such an old and international brand. We are neither old nor international, so that's the kind of brand uh, uh, recall that a customer has usually. So for her to be able to afford a national, international, and an old brand at that price point is something to be proud of. We also run a program which a lot of brands are doing now, where uh, you can have your own set of 20, 50, 50 families uh, that and you can give out coupon codes or uh, your code saying if the customer buys code, it's a simple, very, very simple model. And yeah, so that's something that we've seen women purchase Honda Cities using this model. So yeah, that's about.
Thank you. Amazing. I think the way that you mentioned about enabling women employment across different cities, creating different vendors, and obviously now working with Reliance to expand the footprint, that is definitely going to go a really long way. And enabling local logistics, I think, is very, very important. And going to the grassroots and ensuring everything is done. And that is where I think the first point that Nishant had also mentioned earlier on is around infrastructure development. That's the same thing that I'm echoing over here. That once you create an infra or once you create a highway, it's more around creating a highway, and then people will definitely find ways to get their cars on it or just go from one place to another. So that was really, really insightful. Thank you so much, Abhay. And I'll have one more question for Lalit, and then we'll take the Q&A from the audience. So, Lalit, now looking at the opportunity at tier two and tier three, so what's the difference in between the shopping patterns between smaller towns and cities? Each of the brand owners over here have mentioned how they are different and how they're personalizing for each and every stuff. But for the kind of segment that you are in, it would be slightly different as well. What kind of personalized or customized offerings have been relevant to these markets when comparing it to metros? And how do you leverage technology to establish Urban Ladder's footprint in the smaller cities? It's really interesting because all of us have so when we talk about Abhay, Nishant, you, Lalit, Vinay, all of them have very, very separate target audiences, and it's very interesting to see a broad representation over here. So, Lalit, that would be for you.
Yeah, I think though I think a lot of the panelists have covered that part, right? So, so even though let's say when you're talking about let's say kind going to different geographies, tier two, tier three cities, I think one thing which remains same regardless of the category is the different geographies can have a different taste, right? And the overall preferences in terms of what they are looking can differ. Now that remains same for let's say apparel remains same for category like us, right? Where the taste is very different from geography to geography. Now, one thing when a lot of people kind of consider, let's say if you're going to tier 3 city, probably you should be looking at more economical product, right? That in our view, I think we haven't we don't strongly believe in that part because there are all sort of customer in the all sort of reasons, right? So if we have customers who are looking for more fun, probably products which are sort of in the lower range, but there are still customers. There's still good segment who's still looking for the products probably which are as compared to equivalent to how what is being offered in the metro cities, right? So I think that perspective, I think what is very important to have enough assortment, right? And then from the geography to geography, the taste might differ. For example, in a metro city, people might be comfortable buying the engineering wood products, right? But in people probably in tier two, tier three, people are more interested, let's say, in the solid wood products, right? And hence, but there's a still segment for the people who are willing to buy the engineering wood products. So I think the assortment is the key when you are looking into the other cities, having the enough assortment so that you can cater to different sort of customer looking for different sort of products in the different regions. And then basis on how you see what kind of assortment is working, then you can probably introduce more product as Vinay suggested, you have to also think about how you're kind of introducing freshness into the catalog is also very important thing one has to sort of plan. That's more about how you kind of look at the overall the product and overall the spectrum of how you do. So along this time, we have kind of worked on and introduced few brands kind of catering to different sort of needs of a customer from those geographies. I think as far as the technology is concerned and overall the expansion of the business is concerned into the larger cities, I think what is really important is to also think about how you're keeping your cost in control, because as you penetrate into tier 2, tier 3 cities early, you should have enough volume for economics to make sense for your business, right? And I think that's where being a part of a larger group has really helped us, where we are able to kind of bring in a lot of new delivery centers, a lot of new store with other businesses which are part of the larger group, and kind of co-locating those delivery centers and stores, so that it makes overall the sense for us to kind of start without much sort of friction in those geographies. From a technology point of view, I think some of the challenges, as Vinay mentioned, as you go to different geographies, the challenges in terms of operating the logistics is very different. The way probably the vendors and partners you are available to kind of take care of logistics in the metros probably could be very different in the different geographies, right? So you need probably some solutions and some systems out there which can be more configurable and intelligent in that manner, where you can configure those solutions depending on how you want to leverage. Probably in some region, you know that your logistics is going to do well, right? And you leverage your logistics. In some region, you might want to go ahead with and partner with some of the other existing providers, some local vendors, and kind of leverage those. So from that point of view, it's very important. How do you kind of look at it? If you go same thing, if we kind of replicate the same idea into warehousing, as you go from a metros to more tier 2, tier 3, we are looking at a larger number of warehouses. And hence the problem of sort of balancing the inventory, looking at the local demand, predicting the ordering for those geographies, and kind of ensuring a certain fill rate above certain number is very key, because then that's going to impact the overall the time you promise to your customer. So I think that's also very important to solve this problem from technology point of view, because then that's something which you want to ensure that is always high and is helping your product to reach customer faster. And then there are some aspects which are more around when you target was definitely a larger base, right? In a category like ours, people are, and then even some of the other categories, it's very important that people are able to experience the touch and feel of the product, right? And touch and feel look of the product, right? So what kind of solutions you're building to help them with that? You have solution for them to kind of try those out in a virtual layout, kind of leveraging the solutions like AR and VR to kind of have the customer experience the product either their home or in some, let's say, virtual space where they can kind of experience that. So I think that's something, those are some of the things I think are very important as you go and kind of tap into the larger geographies where you are able to cater, and those are the customer, the problem which customer will come up to you usually. And those will first help you to kind of penetrate deeper into those geographies and then further expand as you see the customer feedback and you kind of improve on it and kind of work towards it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lalit. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. What I will do is that since we don't have a lot of time, I will take a couple of questions and I'll ask each and every one of you for maybe a line or a couple of line. If you can help us with that, considering that we can overshoot by another 5 minutes overall itself. So very, very interesting questions that we've had in the Q&A, and I hope you got a chance to look at the questions. I see a lot of budding entrepreneurs and existing entrepreneurs and asking very relevant questions in Q&A. So a couple of them were really interesting. So one would be that, and that's for all, that what data would you look at to open a store in tier 2 and tier 3? This is something that Lakshmi has asked. Lakshmi Gopi has asked that what kind of data would you refer to in order to choose a tier 2 and tier 3 cities and when you're opening the store? And another interesting question that has come across, that came across was from, okay, I'm not able to, from Goodleen, which is, what are your expectations from technology in terms of further evolution that will overall increase the reach and ease of the customer? So very, very relevant questions. One is more on what data do you look at to open the stores, and as each of you have, so that would be really important. And the other is, what is the wish list for technology as well that really helps you. I think wish list for technology is something that all of us keep discussing between our teams, and we keep asking, "Kya ye aise ho sakta hai kya?" So these would be pretty two insights. Lalit, I'll start with you, and let's keep it brief as well for all of us, so that the ET team also has that time.
Sure. So I think on both the questions, I think first, when you kind of are looking at a new geography, definitely at some level, being a sort of brand which is online present, also you already have some data of your customer behavior across your various digital assets. So one very important data point is one, what kind of insights you're able to get with the data which you are present, right? Do you have some information from which is able to help you understand what is the behavior and kind of the overall demand from a certain geography? I think that's one very important data point. And then the category you operate, what are the other data available in the market which you can kind of relate to? I think it's more over a sort of combination of these two information which helps you kind of decide which geography to go first and what format to go first. Do you want to only operate into online? Do you want to operate in online? Again, that depends on what kind of customer you're looking to offer. There could be some customer, as Nishant mentioned, who are probably good with first exploring more into retail. They have a good disposable income, or you are going to look first more from the online presence. From technology solution, I think, as I mentioned, it kind of covers the everything which has to start with the discovering the product until the delivery of the product. I think what as an entrepreneur, what you have to think as, what if you are kind of increasing your reach to tier 2, tier 3 cities, what kind of general problems in that sort of population you are going to face, right? Could be very different, or could be different in terms of what problems you are already facing. The magnitude of those problems could be different in the metros, but that overall percentage and contribution can change in tier 2, tier 3 cities. So a large part of it related to logistics, fulfillment, discovery of the product. Along this, some of the things I've mentioned, I think play a very important role in the overall journey when we go tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Got it. Got it. Thank you, Lalit. Abhay, your words on this?
See, I'll answer the data that we look at before opening a store, because that's very, very relevant for us. And there is always for lack of a better word, a stupid answer that wherever we find a complementing brand. So if your woman is wearing, trying to wear a outerwear like an ethnic brand like SOCH or anyone else, I mean, not naming brand here, but so there we would of course like to, and a small, and everybody will agree with that I live in Delhi, and I saw a store open in Hoskas of Naturals ice cream. And after a couple of months, Gyani's opened. After a couple of months, 2 more opened. Now there are 7 stores of ice creams there. It has become an ice cream hub, and
Yes.
the sales of all the stores has gone up 2x. So
Waffles, ice creams, everything is there next to that store.
Exactly, waffle. Yes. So the myth that if there is another brand there, don't go there is not a right notion if you have confidence in your brand. The second is that we were an online first brand for the first 5 years, 6 years. We did only online. So we have data or where people are buying and where people are not buying. Where people are buying, we don't think twice. We just go there and open a store, like we opened one in Sweden, and the sales has been brilliant for us. By the way, tier 1 stores take 6 to 8 months to get profitable. Tier 2 stores, tier 3 stores take 2 months, maybe less.
Okay.
So 90% of my stores are profitable, which says that people want that brand experience that I was talking about. So yeah, and where people are not buying, we do a market study and see, is there no other brand there? So are they not aware, or are they buying from somewhere else? So we do a study, etc. Common practice. So from a technology standpoint, well, it's a notion, and of course, now what as a company earlier, we were always thinking that we want to build everything in-house. Now we have genuinely shifted away from that notion and saying, if somebody is doing it better, let's take it, integrate it good faster. using their capabilities. And WMS was the first decision that we took, and we've been in touch with couples for quite some time. And we are doing that on the marketing side, we are doing that on the sales side, on the production quality, on finance, and yeah. So yeah, but for us, since retail is going to be big, I in fact just before this call was taking a demo of a tool that helps me manage the retail stuff.
Perfect. Thank you, Abhay. Thank you, Abhay. Vinay, same question for you.
What would you like me to touch upon, Prateek?
So I think you mentioned a lot about technology, and you're already way ahead of the curve in technology, where your digital catalog is already linked to your ERP. That's something phenomenal. So I'd like to touch upon the first question. So what kind of data do you look at when you're opening a store in tier 2 and tier 3, considering that you're much ahead in terms of the ethnic wear market?
Yeah, so I think obviously market analysis is the first thing that you look at. It's people on the ground looking at what the competition is like, what the white space is. I agree with the notion that having a cluster of other similar brands in the space, it's more the merrier, the way we look at it. It is, I won't lie, it's sometimes nice to be the only ethnic wear brand in a mall or a high street. That has its perks too. But you definitely create a destination when you have multiple brands. So, getting numbers from these brands, looking at benchmarks. I may perform a certain multiple to a certain brand in certain regions, and that usually will hold true for that region. And in some cases, it's a smaller multiple. In some cases, it's a higher multiple, depending on how strong we are in that region. So getting and just hardcore data to begin with. Looking at online sales, we're not very large online, but just in terms of where traffic is coming from, where sales are happening, that's something that we take into account very strongly. And then, as far as merchandise mix, we look at what other people are doing. We look at what trends seem to be and what the market wants. And we start with a mix, but we're very nimble in terms of, constantly looking at that and tweaking that where we need to. And, our planning tool is something that comes into play, pretty seriously there. So a lot of money going into our planning tool. Obviously, analytics is critical, and everyone has data. It's what you do with that data. I can honestly find opposing insights from the same data. It's just get the right people to slice and dice it the right way. And look at data so you can get insights and have actionables on those insights, as opposed to just, weekly reports and daily reports and things like that. So yeah, just leveraging on those things before we take those calls.
Perfect. And I completely agree with you. You torture data long enough, it will confess to anything you want. Thank you so much, Vinay. And Nishant, I'll leave the final words to you.
Sure. Thanks. I guess the panelists have summed it up, but just to add two bits of mine. While all organizations would have their business development team going out on the street identifying locations. Of course, marrying the data in terms of what is happening in the marketplace model with cities. For us, a city like Khurda, which came up and which was at one of the weeks, witnessing the highest throughput, location. Having said that, I would not go ahead and open a retail store there, but we need to ensure that we marry in terms of what my D2C channel is speaking versus what my marketplaces are saying. And, what is the ground reality for that matter? What is the propensity of spend? How much is the consumer aware in terms, because at the end of the day, when I'm selling a passion and I'm trying to create a market to it, it will attract a lot of investment. So we try and marry and map all of this. Apart, we are working, we're working with an organization who is, mapping and managing the entire location, who helps us identifying location to 100 by 100, meter level, where we will be able to where we are able to identify, saying that which location is ideal to, for opening a store. So, we marry all of it to conclude with our site selection committee, and then we move on. So that's the strategy that we operate. But one very important thing that we also take into consideration is whether I, open and splurge, where I open one location and then move on to other location, or I consolidate. Say, for instance, if I'm opening a store in Jaipur in Rajasthan, whether I open another one, or I go ahead and open another store in, say, Ghaziabad, for that matter. Because this is largely, this will help us, consolidating, whether it is marketing, supply chain, operations, for that matter. All of it becomes an important task. So, apart from the data, we also take the module, which is how the business is going to grow, what is the business projection, and how the business market is reacting. So that's what we look at doing, when we go about touching the store. So that's my 2-bit to it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nishant, Lalit, Vinay, Abhay. It was really nice of you to take out time today. I could see that one of each CXOs has been here, Chief Marketing Head, Chief Financial Head, CEO, CTO. So we have a full house over here. And the insights that we got was today was really exciting on how Tier 2 and Tier 3 are definitely the way to go ahead. Key outputs that I would just see is that we have to be careful when we are expanding, just ensuring that the agility has to be there. We Tier 2 and Tier 3 turn profitable sooner. Third, obviously, when we talk about the consumer patterns are different, and it's very important to read those consumer patterns, and not one thing serves all. So key, very important insights. And I would also like to thank ETRetail for giving all the panelists an opportunity to come together and give insights and come over here. Thank you so much.